The gleaming spires of Neo-Aurora pierced the night sky, their surfaces reflecting the countless holographic advertisements that flickered across the cityscape. The year was 2007, and Neo-Aurora stood as the epicenter of neural technology, where the boundaries between consciousness and reality had become increasingly blurred. Dr. Lam Kai stared out the window of his minimalist apartment, watching the city pulse with artificial life. His eyes were rimmed with dark circles, evidence of the chronic insomnia that had plagued him for years. As the leading neural engineer at the No-Try Institute, Kai understood the intricate workings of the human brain better than most, yet he couldn't fix his own broken sleep patterns. His apartment was sparsely furnished, save for a few cherished mementos from his childhood, a small wooden bird his mother had carved for him, a faded photograph of a countryside farm where he had grown up, and books, physical books, a rarity in this digital age. They were touchstones to a past that seemed increasingly distant. A notification chimed on his neural interface. It was Helena Van, the executive director of Neuralink, the parent company of No-Try Institute. Dr. Kai, the board has approved the human trials for Dreamweaver. We begin next week. Kai's heart raced. Dreamweaver was his brainchild, a neural implant designed to regulate sleep patterns and enhance dream states for therapeutic purposes. For years, he had watched as Neuralink developed increasingly invasive neural technologies. But Dreamweaver was different. It was meant to heal, not exploit. "I'll review the protocols tomorrow," he replied, his fingers hovering over the virtual keyboard. After a moment's hesitation, he added, "I'd like to volunteer as the first test subject." Helena's response was immediate. "Absolutely not. You're too valuable as the project lead." But Kai had already made up his mind. Who better to test Dreamweaver than its creator? Besides, if it could cure his insomnia, it would be worth the risk. The following morning, Kai arrived at the sterile white laboratory of No-Try Institute. The facility was a marvel of modern architecture, all glass and polished steel, designed to inspire confidence in the miracles of science performed within its walls. Maya Tran, his closest colleague and the software engineer responsible for Dreamweaver's programming, looked up from her workstation as he entered. "You look terrible," she said bluntly, her dark eyes assessing him. "Another sleepless night?" Kai nodded, dropping into the chair beside her. "Which is why I've decided to volunteer for the first Dreamweaver implantation." Maya's expression shifted from surprise to concern. "Kai, that's incredibly risky. We've only just received approval for human trials." "The simulations have been perfect," he countered. "And who better to monitor the effects than the person who designed it?" Maya opened her mouth to argue further, but was interrupted by the arrival of Professor Min Kang, Kai's mentor and the scientific director of Neuralink. The older man's face was a mask of practiced neutrality, but Kai detected a hint of excitement in his eyes. "I hear you volunteered for the first implantation," Professor Kang said. "Brave, but unnecessary. We have a list of qualified volunteers." "With all due respect, Professor, I insist." Kai replied firmly, "Dreamweaver is my creation. I should be the one to test it first." After a lengthy debate, it was agreed. 3 days later, Kai lay on an operating table, watching as Maya calibrated the Dreamweaver chip, a tiny, iridescent square no larger than his thumbnail. "This will regulate your sleep cycles and allow us to monitor your dream states," she explained, though Kai already knew the technical specifications better than anyone. "We'll start with basic dream recording, then move on to modification in Phase 2. "I trust you," Kai said simply. The procedure was quick and minimally invasive. The chip was inserted at the base of his skull, interfacing directly with his brainstem. By evening, Kai was back in his apartment, instructed to keep a detailed log of his sleep and dream experiences. That night, for the first time in years, Kai fell asleep easily. His dreams were vivid but unremarkable. Walks through familiar streets, conversations with colleagues, ordinary scenes from his daily life, until, in the early hours of the morning, the dream shifted. He stood in a vast, empty space. The air around him shimmered with potential. Then, from nowhere, a bird appeared, a phoenix, its feathers a cascade of living flame. It circled above him, then descended to perch on his outstretched hand. The heat was intense, but didn't burn. The phoenix regarded him with intelligent eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom. "What are you trying to tell me?" Kai asked in the dream. The phoenix opened its beak, but instead of a bird's call, it spoke with his mother's voice. "Be careful what you wish for. My son, some dreams are not meant to be captured." Kai woke with a start, his heart pounding. The dream had been so vivid, so unlike his usual fragmented sleep. He reached for his tablet to record the experience when he noticed something impossible on his nightstand. A single feather, glowing with an internal light, hot to the touch. The feather disintegrated into ash as he reached for it. Shaken, Kai hurried to the institute. Arriving before dawn, he downloaded the data from his Dreamweaver implant and began analyzing the neural patterns. Everything seemed normal. Increased activity in the visual cortex, standard REM patterns. Nothing to suggest what he had experienced was anything more than an exceptionally vivid dream. Yet the memory of the feather, its warmth against his fingers, felt undeniably real. "Early for your first post-implant checkup," Maya commented, finding him hunched over his workstation. She carried 2 cups of coffee, placing one beside him. "How did you sleep?" Kai hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Too well. The dreams were incredibly vivid, almost tangible." Maya's expression grew serious. "Tangible how?" He told her about the phoenix, about waking to find the feather. By the time he finished, Maya was frowning. "That's not possible. Kai, Dreamweaver monitors and records neural activity. It can't manifest physical objects from dreams." "I know what I saw," he insisted, though doubt had begun to creep in. Perhaps the feather had been a hallucination, a side effect of the implantation. Over the next week, Kai's sleep continued to improve, but the phoenix appeared in his dreams every night. Each time, it delivered cryptic warnings in his mother's voice, and each morning, he would wake to find small evidences of its presence: a scorch mark on his pillow, ash on his fingertips, the lingering scent of smoke in his apartment. He kept these occurrences to himself, documenting them privately while reporting only the standard data to the Dreamweaver team. The official trials had begun with 20 volunteers, all reporting positive effects: better sleep, enhanced dream recall, improved mood. But then came Anbin, the first volunteer to experience a nightmare. Anbin was a young graduate student who had volunteered for the trial to help with his anxiety-induced insomnia. 2 weeks into the trial, he arrived at the institute in a state of panic, claiming that the monster from his nightmare had followed him into waking life. "It was just shadows at first," he explained, his voice trembling. "Then I started seeing it from the corner of my eye. Now it's there, watching me, even when I'm awake." The medical team dismissed it as a psychological reaction, perhaps even a form of sleep paralysis extending into hypnagogic hallucinations. But Kai recognized the fear in Anbin's eyes. It mirrored his own growing unease. That evening, Kai stayed late at the institute, using his security clearance to access the complete Dreamweaver files. What he discovered sent a chill through him. Hidden in the technical specifications were parameters he hadn't included in his original design, modifications that allowed the chip to not only record dream states, but to amplify them, creating a feedback loop between subconscious imagery and the sensory cortex. Someone had altered his creation, transforming it from a therapeutic tool into something far more dangerous. Before he could process this discovery, a flicker of movement caught his eye. There, perched on the edge of his desk, was the phoenix from his dreams, its fiery plumage casting dancing shadows across the laboratory walls. "You're not real," Kai whispered. The phoenix tilted its head, regarding him with those ancient eyes. "What is reality but a consensus of perception?" it replied, still in his mother's voice. "They're playing with forces they don't understand. My son, dreams are the mind's way of processing fears and desires. What happens when those manifestations no longer remain confined to sleep?" The bird spread its wings, and suddenly the laboratory was filled with its duplicates, dozens of phoenixes, each burning brighter than the last. They circled him in a tornado of fire before converging into a single point of blinding light. When Kai's vision cleared, he was alone again. But on his computer screen, one file stood out, a confidential memo from Helena Van to the board of directors. Phase 3 approval requested. Dreamweaver's unexpected manifestation properties represent an unprecedented market opportunity. Imagine thought-to-matter conversion without manufacturing costs. The defense applications alone justify immediate commercialization. Kai's blood ran cold. Neuralink wasn't interested in healing sleep disorders. They were weaponizing dreams. He needed an ally, someone he could trust. He thought of Maya, with her straightforward manner and ethical concerns. The next morning, he showed her what he'd found. This is insane," she said after reading the memo. "They're talking about commercializing a technology they don't even understand. These manifestations could be dangerous." "They already are," Kai replied, telling her about Anbin and his own experiences with the Phoenix. "I think Dreamweaver is creating some kind of bridge between dream states and physical reality. The question is, how?" Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, digging deeper into the system. "There's more," she said grimly. "They've been collecting data on emotional triggers that increase manifestation probability. Fear, trauma, strong desire, they're all amplifiers. And look at this distribution plan." The document outlined a rollout strategy targeting individuals with PTSD, grief disorders, and severe anxiety, people whose dreams would be most intense, most emotionally charged. "They're not trying to help these people," Maya whispered. "They're using them as generators." Over the following weeks, Kai and Maya worked in secret, documenting the unauthorized changes to Dreamweaver and connecting with other test subjects who had experienced similar phenomena. They formed a group that called themselves the Awakened, sharing information and supporting each other as the manifestations became more frequent and more substantial. And Bin's shadow monster had evolved from a vague presence to a tangible entity that left claw marks on his bedroom walls. Another volunteer, a woman who dreamed of her deceased daughter, woke to find children's laughter echoing through her empty home and tiny footprints appearing in the dust. Kai's Phoenix continued to appear, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in waking life, always with warnings and guidance. It led him to discover that Professor Kang, his trusted mentor, had been working with military contractors from the beginning, selling the promise of thought-to-matter technology as the ultimate weapon. Imagine soldiers whose fears manifest as real threats to the enemy. One report read, or operatives who can create objects on demand, without supplies or equipment. The implications were horrifying. But as Kai and Maya gathered evidence, They realized that Neuralink was moving faster than they had anticipated. Helena Van announced the beginning of commercial phase testing, opening Dreamweaver implantation to hundreds of new volunteers. "We need to shut it down," Kai told the gathered members of the Awakened, "before these manifestations become too powerful to control." "How?" Anbin asked, the dark circles under his eyes testament to his ongoing torment. "Neuralink has government backing, military contracts. They won't just stop because we ask nicely." "We don't ask," Maya said firmly. "We force the issue. The Dreamweaver system has a master control hub at the Neuralink data center. If we can access it, we can transmit a shutdown signal to all active implants." The plan was dangerous but necessary. Using Maya's expertise, they created a diversion, a system-wide alert claiming a critical security breach in the Dreamweaver network. As Neuralink security scrambled to respond, Kai and Maya slipped into the heavily guarded data center, but Helena Van had anticipated their move. As they approached the central server room, alarms blared and security doors slammed shut around them. "Dr. Kai," Helena's voice came over the intercom. "I'm disappointed. You could have been part of something revolutionary." "You're playing with people's minds," Kai shouted back, "creating technology you can't control." "Control is overrated," Helena replied coolly. "Evolution requires risk, and I think you'll find we understand the risks better than you imagine." The lights flickered, and suddenly Kai and Maya were surrounded by security personnel. But these weren't ordinary guards. Their forms shifted and changed, sometimes appearing solid, sometimes transparent, as if they weren't fully present in reality. "Dream constructs," Maya whispered in horror. "They've learned to manifest their own security force." As the guards closed in, Kai felt the familiar warmth of the phoenix near his shoulder. "Remember," it whispered in his mother's voice, "dreams have power, but so do you. What you imagine can become real." Understanding dawned on Kai. He closed his eyes, focusing his thoughts on his childhood home, the peaceful farm where he had grown up with his mother. He visualized the golden fields, the clear blue sky, the sense of safety and love that permeated every memory. When he opened his eyes, the scene around him had changed. The sterile walls of the data center now appeared to be made of rough-hewn wood. The floor beneath their feet was covered in sweet-smelling hay, and standing between them and the dream guards was the figure of an elderly woman, Kai's mother, exactly as he remembered her. "This isn't your battle," she said to the guards, her voice gentle but firm. "Go back to where you belong." The guards hesitated, their forms becoming less distinct. One by one, they faded away, like mist dissipating in sunlight. But the respite was brief. Through the windows of this manifested farmhouse, Kai could see chaos erupting across Neo Aurora. The hundreds of new Dreamweaver recipients were all dreaming now, their subconscious fears and desires taking physical form throughout the city. Giant creatures stalked between buildings, impossible structures twisted into the sky. Weather patterns formed and reformed as emotional states fluctuated. "It's a dream cascade," Maya said, her voice tight with fear. "All the implants are resonating with each other, amplifying the manifestations. If we don't stop it now..." She didn't need to finish. The consequences were playing out before their eyes. Reality itself was beginning to fracture under the weight of so many competing dream states. They fought their way to the central server, Kai using his newfound ability to manifest protective elements from his own dreams. The Phoenix led the way, burning through obstacles with its fiery wings. In the heart of the data center, they found what they were looking for, the master control for all Dreamweaver implants, but they also found Helena Van, waiting for them alongside Professor Kang. "You see now what we've created," Helena said, gesturing to the screens that showed the chaos engulfing the city. "The next stage of human evolution. Thought made real. Desire made manifest." "Or, this isn't evolution," Kai countered. "It's madness. You've turned dreams into weapons. All new technologies have dual applications," Professor Kang said, his voice reasonable, as if they were having an academic debate. "Yes, there are military uses, but think of the possibilities for creation, for art, for healing." "Look outside," Maya snapped. "Does that look like healing to you?" On the screens, they could see a massive creature formed from the collective nightmares of dozens of dreamers, a shifting monstrosity of shadow and fear, consuming everything in its path as it moved toward the data center. "A temporary adjustment period," Helena insisted, though her confidence seemed to waver. "Once people learn to control their dream states—" "They won't," Kai interrupted. "Dreams come from the subconscious. They're not meant to be controlled. That's their purpose, to process what we can't or won't face in waking life." He stepped toward the central console, but Professor Kang moved to block him. "I can't let you undo all our work. Kai, this technology will change everything." "It already has," Kai replied. He looked at his former mentor with sadness. "You taught me that science should serve humanity, not endanger it." Before Kang could respond, the building shook violently. The nightmare creature had reached them, its enormous form visible through the reinforced windows of the data center. It was a shifting mass of teeth and claws and eyes, embodying the primal fears of every dreamer connected to the network. "It's drawn to the source," Maya realized. "All these manifested dreams are connected to the central hub." Helena's composure finally broke. "Shut it down," she ordered, her face pale. "Shut it all down now!" But it was too late. The creature smashed through the outer defenses, walls disintegrating at its touch. Alarms blared as emergency protocols engaged, but they were designed to counter physical threats, not manifestations of collective fear. Kai knew what he had to do. The Dreamweaver network couldn't simply be turned off. The connections had grown too complex, too intertwined with the dreamers' minds. Any abrupt disconnection could cause permanent psychological damage to hundreds of people. "There's only one way," he said, meeting Maya's eyes. "The system needs a reset, a dream powerful enough to overwrite the fear." "Kai, no," Maya began, understanding his intention. "The strain on your mind—" "I have to try." He moved to the central console and connected his neural interface directly to the system. The phoenix landed on his shoulder, its warm presence giving him courage. "What are you doing?" Helena demanded. "Fighting nightmare with dream." Kai answered simply. He closed his eyes and summoned his most powerful memory, the last day he had spent with his mother before her death. The warmth of sunlight on the farm, the smell of freshly baked bread, the sound of her laughter, the absolute certainty of being loved, of being safe. He poured every detail, every sensation, every emotion into the connection. The system resisted at first, the negative dream energy too entrenched to be easily displaced. Kai felt his consciousness stretching, thinning across hundreds of connections. The pain was excruciating, like his mind was being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. But he persisted, focusing on that one perfect memory. Gradually, he felt other minds joining with his. First Maya, then Anbin, then other members of the Awakened, all contributing their own positive dreams to counteract the nightmare cascade. Outside, the monster began to change. Its formless terror solidified into more defined shapes, then began to dissolve as the positive dream energy overwhelmed it. The chaos across the city started to subside, manifestations fading like morning mist under the sun. In the data center, alarms quieted, emergency lights dimmed. The screens showed the dream network stabilizing, then going dormant as the reset took effect. Kai collapsed, his mind finally giving way under the strain. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the Phoenix, its fiery form expanding to fill his vision with golden light. He woke days later in a hospital room, Maya dozing in a chair beside his bed. The Phoenix was perched on the windowsill, visible only to him. "The others?" he asked when Maya stirred. "Recovering," she said, relief evident in her voice. "The reset worked. All the Dreamweaver implants have gone into safety mode. They're still monitoring sleep patterns, but the manifestation function has been neutralized." "And Neuralink?" Maya's expression hardened. "Under investigation. Helena and Professor Kang are in custody. The military contracts have been exposed, but there are already other companies looking to acquire the technology." Kai nodded, unsurprised. Innovation could be delayed but never truly stopped. The question was always how it would be used, and by whom. In the weeks that followed, as Kai recovered his strength, authorities debated the future of neural implant technology. New regulations were proposed, ethical committees formed. The victims of the Dreamweaver incident received psychological treatment, many forming support groups to deal with their experiences. Kai's own implant remained active, though modified. The manifestation properties were greatly diminished, limited to small, personal effects that posed no danger to the wider world. The Phoenix continued to visit him, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in reality, a bridge between worlds that he had come to accept. When he was finally released from medical supervision, Kai made a decision. He resigned from the No-Try Institute and left Neo Aurora behind. Using his settlement from Neuralink, he purchased his mother's old farm, the real one, not the dream version, and set about restoring it. Maya visited often, bringing news from the city and updates on the Awakened, who had transformed from a resistance group into an advocacy organization for responsible neural technology. "They're still trying to replicate the manifestation properties," she told him during one visit. "But without the original Dreamweaver design, they're struggling." "Good," Kai said. He was sitting on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that rivaled his phoenix's feathers. "Some boundaries aren't meant to be crossed, at least not yet, not before we understand the consequences." "Do you regret creating it?" Maya asked, the question she had been wanting to ask for months. Kai considered this, watching as the Phoenix circled lazily above the golden fields. "No," he said finally. "Knowledge itself isn't good or evil. It's how we use it that matters. Dreamweaver taught us that the line between imagination and reality is thinner than we thought. That's a lesson worth learning, even at such a cost." The Phoenix descended, landing on the railing beside them. Maya couldn't see it, but she had come to accept its presence in Kai's life. "What does it tell you now?" she asked, nodding toward the space where she knew the bird perched. Kai smiled. "That dreams still have power, even without technology to amplify them. That the mind's ability to create, to imagine, to transform, that's the real miracle." As darkness fell over the farm, Kai felt a peace he had not known since childhood. Here, in this place of memory and dream, he would continue his research, but at a human pace, respecting the boundaries between worlds. That night, he dreamed of fields of golden wheat stretching to the horizon, of his mother's smile, of a future where technology served humanity's highest aspirations rather than its fears. And when he woke, A single feather lay on his pillow, glowing with gentle warmth, not a manifestation of power, but a reminder of possibility.